Costumes in Star Wars Episode 8, Stormtroopers who look like something from Mass Effect, and Princess Leia using the Force. We're going to talk about all of that and more on today's episode of the HoloNet Underground. Hey Star Wars fans, this is Urban Acolyte TV and my name is Prince. It is Wednesday, April 20th, 2016, and this is the HoloNet Underground, bringing you the latest news in the Star Wars universe. Well, before I get started, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who wished me luck writing my term paper over the weekend. Well, it looks like I've got quite a few stories to cover from the last 2 days, so let's get started with news from Episode 8. Over the weekend, Mark Hamill told his fans that Rian Johnson, the person directing Episode 8, had given him the go-ahead to give his Twitter followers a brief glimpse of an Episode 8 trailer. Well, 24 hours later, Mark Hamill tweeted out a brief glimpse of a trailer from Episode 8. But it was his trailer. It looks like he's back to his trickster ways. Or would that be his Joker ways? Mr. Hamill, you're killing me with these jokes. Or would that be a killing joke? Speaking of killing me with jokes, did you guys happen to catch the joke Mark Hamill made about me being a Jedi janitor on Twitter last week? I was so shocked by the whole thing that I totally forgot that I promised to give Shiraz and his wife at Meet Billy's a shout out on her Endor Leia cosplay picture. Okay, moving on to more news from Episode 8, MakingStarWars.net posted an article about Rey and Luke Skywalker's costume descriptions from the set. And that's Rey and Luke Skywalker, not Rey and Luke Skywalker together, as in father and daughter, because that would never happen. Rey is reported to be wearing the same outfit she's seen wearing at the end of Episode 7, but she's since removed her vest. She continues wearing the capri pants, the off-white tunic, and those really cool arm wraps that she's wearing at the end of Episode 7. The article says that she was seen still carrying the blaster that Han Solo gave her on Takodana, but there was no mention of her staff or Anakin's lightsaber. Now Luke, on the other hand, was seen wearing a darker costume compared to the one he's wearing at the end of Force Awakens. The article doesn't mention this, but technically Luke wears 2 different Jedi tunics in The Force Awakens. But getting back to Luke's costume description, this costume is supposed to resemble what he's wearing in Return of the Jedi. Luke is seen wearing a cloak or a possible cape that drapes over his shoulders in an asymmetrical manner similar to Captain Phasma's cape. And the article says that his look is very reminiscent of Count Dooku. Poe Dameron will also have a new costume in Episode 8. And well, actually, it's going to be pretty close to the same thing he wears in Episode 7, but he's going to have a new jacket since he told his buddy Finn to keep his other jacket. Okay, so I really don't want to do any more stories on costume changes. I mean, seriously, who wants to talk about costumes? But if you're wondering how C-3PO gets his red arm, you should check out Star Wars Special C-3PO Number 1. That comic documents the top secret mission that leads to everyone's favorite protocol droid getting that red arm. And in case you didn't know it, C-3PO is totally in Episode 7. But you might not have recognized him, because he has this red arm. Did I mention that C-3PO has a red arm? On to more exciting things. A brand new story arc is coming up in the Star Wars comic book series, which will introduce an elite group of stormtroopers who will be pursuing Han, Leia, Luke, and Chewie. This batch of stormtroopers was loosely inspired by the First Order and the Bad Batch group of clone troopers from the Clone Wars episode. Think of these guys as being the Empire's version of SEAL Team 6. You can drop them off in a hot zone with the odds stacked against them, and whether it's capturing a target or pulling off some assassination, they're going to emerge victorious. Now I know there's going to be all kinds of jokes about whether or not they can hit anything, but imagine these guys as being the top experts at what they do. They each have different areas of specialization, So one is a demolitions expert, one is a sniper, one is a pilot, one's a rogue or a scout type. You got the tech expert, and of course you have the guy with the BFG. So these guys are kind of like Agent Kallus on Star Wars Rebels, but they're dressed in stormtrooper armor. And speaking of their armor, they look more like characters from Mass Effect who are pretending to be stormtroopers. And they're all being led by Sergeant Creel, and he's no slouch. Sergeant Creel is in an earlier issue, and he's seen sparring with Luke Skywalker on Nar Shaddaa with lightsabers. He's an Imperial agent who works for Darth Vader, which might say something about these elite stormtroopers, like maybe they work directly under Vader. Either way, I'm looking forward to Star Wars issue number 20, where these new stormtroopers are going to be introduced, and in issue number 21, where the new arc involving them will really start to pick up. So check those out, and you can always buy them on Amazon. I get them on Kindle. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to cover on today's episode has to do with Princess Leia or General Organa. On the last episode of HoloNet Underground, I reported an interview where Daisy Ridley said that she was unsure if her character Rey is actually going to become a Jedi. There's a version of that interview on comicbook.com that goes on to say that in episode 8, Leia and Rey's connections to the Force will be further explored. Daisy Ridley said that there's been a debate on set as to whether Leia is a Jedi because she's going to use her Force powers. Now, depending on how much of the Force Awakens material you've read, there's a conversation between Leia and Rey before she leaves to find Luke on Ahch-To. Leia says, "When I was young, I could have trained to become a Jedi myself." And when I read that line, I immediately started wondering why Leia didn't train with Luke. And this is something I hope gets explored in Claudia Gray's Bloodlines novel, which is coming out next month. You can also get that on Amazon. And Amazon's not like endorsing this video or anything. I just buy all my Star Wars stuff on Amazon, including my robes, which you guys keep asking about. Something that I do recommend is to hop over to Amazon and go buy The Princess, the Scoundrel, and the Farm Boy. And it's a retelling of episode 4. And what I've read so far really highlights Leia's intuition, which she doesn't know is through the Force. And like I said, I'm going to admit that I'm not very far into that book, but you can really see from the early parts of the book that Leia's been using the Force her entire life without any training. It's also dangerous for her because in those very early scenes with Vader in episode 4, she's not only sensing the dark side in Vader, and of course she doesn't know what it is, but she's also tapping into her own anger to give her the strength to stand up to Vader and not to completely crumble under his intimidating presence. So I might do a few videos on Leia tapping into the Force in the original trilogy when I get finished with all 3 of those books. And if that's something you guys would really like to see, just let me know down in the comment section so I can, start like taking notes as I'm reading. And also, this is totally speculating, but what kind of things would you like to see Leia do with the Force in episode 8 and possibly episode 9, assuming she doesn't die in 8 like Campea and Harloff and those guys on the Jedi Council keep saying? I always thought that Leia would become sort of like Basta Lashan from the Knights of the Old Republic games and have like this battle meditation ability, since she's a general. Now, I'm not sure, but I think battle meditation is canon. I mean, after I played Knights of the Old Republic, I kind of always imagined that the Emperor was using the battle meditation ability from the throne room on the Death Star during the Battle of Yavin. And if you think about it, I mean, why else would the Emperor be there and try to draw out all of the rebel forces for this big final showdown? Unless he's gonna, lower their morale and then use the Death Star to kill the rebel fleet. But anyways, what do you guys think about Leia using the Force in episode 8? Like, how do you see her using it? Just your speculations. And let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below on that. I'd just be interested in hearing that. Give us a chance to be creative and get away from this whole Snoke and Plagueis stuff you guys keep talking about lately. Anyway, make sure to subscribe if you haven't already and follow Urban Acolyte TV on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. In addition to the HoloNet Underground, there are also fan speculations, review videos, and the Real Life Jedi series. So make sure to keep checking back here for all the Star Wars related content going on at Urban Acolyte TV. So guys, that's all I've got for this episode of the HoloNet Underground, and I'm keeping you all updated on the latest news and developments in the Star Wars universe. So y'all keep on breathing, and may the Force be with you. Bye.